Brittany. And Brittany says this. Oops, wrong one. Okay. My mother, who is part of the health and wealth doctrine, took me to an exorcist while I was young due to an illness. I'm now married with children. She told me that I need to renounce generational curses on behalf of my daughter, renounce the spirit of so-and-so, and on and on. I know this is not biblical. I listen to your media. Can you please help me understand what the arguments is to better talk to her mom? So what do you tell Brittany, Pastor Steve, regarding this?
Well, Brittany, generally, actually, this is the place where the whole idea of generational curses come from, and it's in the Ten Commandments, actually. And so it's in Exodus chapter 20, and it says this. This is in the commandment that you shall not make a carved image or any likeness, and this is in verse 4 of chapter 20, of any likeness that is in heaven above, or that's in the earth beneath, or that's in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, or nor serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing mercy to thousands to those who love me and keep my commandments. And so the whole idea of generational curses comes from that passage right there. And when you're looking at the whole idea of what's being spoken about here, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, that's the idea that you live a certain lifestyle, and what's going to end up happening is that lifestyle is going to be passed down to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. There's a really interesting study that was done, a comparison between two guys who lived in the 1700s, and one of them was Jonathan Edwards and his family, and another was a famous, basically a felon, and his family. And when you go down through and look at Jonathan Edwards' family, Jonathan Edwards was a godly man. He was a pastor and obviously a follower of Jesus. And you go through and look at his family. He had senators and college deans, and just God blessed that family down through the generations. And then this other guy, again, because of where he came from, he ended up with a number of criminals, both men and women, prostitutes, that kind of stuff in his family. And it's just the idea that you become like what your parents are, basically. And so that's the generational curse. It's not that God hates these people or is after them and is trying to wipe them out or something. It's the idea that you're outside of Christ and you're outside of Christ, and so you're an open target to the enemy, and you get a hardened heart toward the things of God. And so it's the God visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, not those who love me. And so what you got to figure out, Brittany, is are you in a situation where you hate God? And if you're in a situation where you hate God, then you can expect that the iniquity that you have in your life is going to be something that's passed down to your children's life. Or are you in the second category where he says, but showing mercy to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments? And so if you're in the position where you love the Lord and you're doing the things that he's called you to, then you're going to be in a position where you're receiving the mercy of the Lord. And it's not something that you have to renounce or anything along those lines. In fact, there's a passage in the book of Colossians that talks about our freedom in Christ and the fact that we have specifically been delivered. This is a cool verse. Let me get there for you. And it says this. Let's see. This is Colossians chapter 1, verse 13 and 14, and it says this: He has delivered us from the power of darkness and conveyed us into the kingdom of the Son of his love, in whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins. And so when I became a Christian, I came from a family that was absolutely non-Christian. My mom was somebody who was disobeying God and just flat out doing that. So were the guys that I had in my life. These people were non-Christians, and they were adamant about it, basically. And so I was getting the consequences that came from that kind of thing. And what happened was I came into a relationship with Jesus, and what Jesus did was he delivered me from the power of darkness. And so I'm no longer under that, and he conveyed me, it's like transferred me into the kingdom of the Son of his love. And so, those things aren't things that hang on to me. Later on in 1 John chapter 4, it says that greater is he that's in us than he that's in the world. And so, I'm not sitting there looking at generational curses on me or my family or anybody else because of that. And that's when God takes you out of darkness, he takes you out of darkness. He breaks the chains, and he brings you into the kingdom again of the Son of his love. And we get redemption, and we get the forgiveness of sins because of that. So God's into breaking chains. He's not into leaving generational curses on little kids. You can break those chains anytime that you want to when you come to a relationship with Christ. So in Jesus there's freedom. In Jesus there's peace. There's joy. There's everything that we need. God gives us everything that pertains to life and godliness. We have a good life because of our following Jesus. And so this whole thing is nothing but superstition. And so you can see it sociologically. People who hate God have bad lives, and so do their children and their grandchildren and their grandchildren until the chain is broken. And so even in my own family, I became a believer. Everything changes. My mom was married 10 different times, and I've been married once. I don't know. A lot of the junk that my mom and my dad, my stepdads went through, that kind of stuff, it's not something that I go through because of the fact that I'm following Christ. And same thing with my children. Both my sisters got some of the consequences from the lifestyle that we lived. They both became Christians. In fact, I got to talk to both of them about coming to Jesus, and so they both became Christians, and their lives are different than what we had before we were Christians. And my brother, on the other hand, has had pretty much the same stuff going on in his life that my mom did because he hasn't found Jesus yet. He hasn't come to the Lord. And so that's all that's talking about.
So just to be clear, because my dad was alcoholic, therefore I get the fruit of what an alcoholic lifestyle brings because he's my dad in my family.
Right.
The NLT, and I think this is where the confusion comes from, is these translations that I think are poor, but it says it this way: I do not leave unpunished the sins of those who hate me, comma, but I punish the children for the sins of their parents to the third and fourth generations. It's not the idea that I get punished for what my dad did. Right. It's the idea that when my dad's an alcoholic, I get what happens around a person that's an alcoholic because I'm in the family.
Right.
Okay.
And there's a good chance that it's like sociologically, alcoholics breed alcoholics.
Right.
You
become like those you hang with, like you said.
That's all it is.
Right.
It's like you grow up in that kind of household. This is what you know. This is where you live, and until you get sick of it and come to Jesus, then that's what you're going to get, generally speaking. And so that's all that's talking about.